Hey, you couldn't sleep either, huh? It's okay. Happens to me too. You clicked on this, so maybe the sound of rain and a few stories might help. 5 of them tonight. Nothing loud, nothing scary. Just enough to keep your mind busy until you drift off. So, let's start. Story 1. I cleaned an office that should have been empty. Getting hired as a night janitor wasn't exactly the career move I'd dreamed of, but at 21 with a criminology degree and no job prospects, I took what I could get. The pay was decent, better than retail, and the hours meant I could look for better work during the day. The company that hired me, Titan Commercial Cleaning, serviced a dozen office buildings around downtown Seattle. Most were small operations, insurance companies and law firms and consulting agencies. Nothing glamorous, just endless cubicles and conference rooms that needed vacuuming and trash removal. My supervisor, Rick, was a guy in his 50s who'd been doing this for decades. Showed me the ropes during my first week, how to strip and wax floors, the right chemicals for different surfaces, which clients were particular about certain things. Easiest gig you'll get is the Pearson building, he told me on my 5th night. 6th floor. It's been vacant for almost a year, but the building owner still pays us to clean it once a week. Wants it ready in case a new tenant signs. You'll be alone up there, but it's simple. Just dust, vacuum, empty any trash, make sure nothing looks abandoned. Sounds easy enough. Should take you 2, maybe 3 hours max. Building's mostly empty at night anyway, so you probably won't see anyone. He handed me a key card. 6th floor access. Don't bother with the other floors. Different companies handle those. Just 6. That Friday night, I showed up at the Pearson building around 10 p.m. It was one of those older office buildings from the 80s. Nothing fancy. Marble lobby, dated elevators, the kind of place that looked tired, even though it was maintained. The security guard at the front desk barely looked up as I signed in. Looked like he was watching something on his phone, probably bored out of his mind. Took the elevator to the 6th floor. The doors opened onto a dark hallway. Motion sensor lights flickering on as I stepped out. The place had that abandoned office smell. Stale air, old carpet, the faint scent of industrial cleaner. I found the light switches, flipped them on. Fluorescent lights hummed to life, revealing a standard office layout. Reception area with a dusty desk, hallways leading to cubicles and private offices, a break room in the back. Everything was furnished, but empty. Desks with nothing on them, chairs pushed in neatly, bare walls where photos and decorations had once hung. I got to work, started in the reception area, dusting surfaces, vacuuming the carpet. The sound of the vacuum was loud in the silence, drowning out everything else. The place felt wrong somehow. Not scary exactly, just off. Too still, too quiet when the vacuum wasn't running. Moved down the hallway to the cubicles. There were maybe 20 of them, arranged in neat rows. I dusted each desk, emptied the trash cans even though they were already empty, made sure everything looked presentable. That's when I noticed the coffee cup. It was sitting on one of the desks in the far corner. A white ceramic mug, still half full. Coffee inside, dark, with a faint wisp of steam rising from it. I stopped, stared at it. Fresh coffee, in an office that had been vacant for a year. My first thought was that maybe security had been up here, forgotten their cup. But the security guard downstairs looked like he hadn't moved from his desk in hours, and the coffee was hot, really hot. Recently poured. I picked it up carefully. The mug was warm in my hand. I sniffed it. Definitely coffee, normal smell, nothing weird. Looked around the cubicle. No other signs of anyone being there. No jacket on the chair, no papers, no personal items. Just this mug of fresh coffee in an empty office. I dumped it in the trash, tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. Maybe Rick had been up here earlier, doing a quality check. Maybe another cleaner had worked a different shift. Had to be an explanation. Kept cleaning. Did the private offices along the perimeter, bigger spaces with windows overlooking the street, executive chairs, empty bookshelves. Everything coated in a fine layer of dust that suggested no one had been here in months. The break room was at the back of the floor. Small kitchenette, round table with 4 chairs, counter with a sink and microwave. I cleaned the counter, wiped down the table, started to mop the floor. That's when I heard it. A phone ringing, not a cell phone, an office phone. That distinctive electronic trill coming from somewhere in the cubicle area. I froze, mop in hand. The ringing continued. 4 rings, 5. Then it stopped. Went to voicemail, I assumed. But this office was empty, vacant. The phones shouldn't even be connected anymore. I walked back to the cubicle area slowly, my heart beating faster than it should. Tried to figure out which desk the ringing had come from, but they all looked the same in the fluorescent light. Then I saw it. On one of the desks, a computer monitor was on. Glowing blue screen, showing a desktop with folders and icons. The screensaver had been disabled. It was just sitting there, active, like someone had been using it. But there was no computer tower, just the monitor, plugged in, somehow displaying a fully functional desktop without being connected to anything. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded small in the empty space. "Anyone here?" No response. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the building's ventilation system. I should have left right then, should have grabbed my stuff and gotten out, but I was curious and maybe a little stupid. I walked over to the desk, looked at the monitor more closely. The desktop was organized, professional. Folders labeled by month, shortcuts to various programs. In the bottom corner, the date and time, Friday, October 18th, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Today, right now. Without thinking, I moved the mouse. The cursor responded, gliding across the screen. I clicked on one of the folders. It opened immediately. Inside were dozens of files. Word documents, PDFs, spreadsheets, all dated recently. Some from today, some from this week. I opened one at random, a report of some kind, dense business language I didn't fully understand. But at the bottom was a signature line, submitted by Jennifer Walters, senior analyst. I opened another, different person's name, then another. Each document was recent. Each was detailed and professional. Each suggested this office was actively being used. But it wasn't. It was empty. Had been for a year. The phone rang again. Closer this time, right next to me. I spun around and saw it. A desk phone, red light blinking, ringing insistently. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. I picked up the receiver. "Hello?" Silence. Not dead air exactly, but the silence of someone listening, waiting. "Who is this?" I asked. A voice answered. Female, professional, slightly distorted like a bad connection. "Did you finish the Henderson report?" "What?" I'm not... "The Henderson report," she repeated, more insistent. "It was due today. Did you finish it?" "I'm a janitor. I'm just cleaning." Pause. Then, "Who are you? Why are you at Jennifer's desk?" "I'm cleaning the office. This place is vacant. There's no one here." Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, uncertain, afraid. "What do you mean vacant?" "We're all here. We're all working." My mouth went dry. No one's here. The office has been empty for a year." "That's not possible. I can see them. I can see everyone. Jennifer's at her desk. Marcus is in his office. We're all here. We're all..." The line went dead. Just a dial tone. I dropped the receiver like it had burned me, stepped back from the desk, looking around the empty office with new eyes. They thought they were still here. Whoever they were, whatever they were, they thought they were still working, still at their desks, still making calls, still existing in this space. But the office was empty, dark except for my lights, silent except for my breathing. I backed toward the elevator, not turning my back on the office. The motion sensor lights started turning off as I moved away from them, plunging sections of the floor into darkness. In that darkness, I swore I could see movement. Shadows shifting, shapes that might have been people sitting at desks. The elevator took forever to arrive. I stood there, pressing the button repeatedly, my hands shaking, watching the darkened office. The computer monitor was still glowing in the distance. The phone could ring again any second. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. I practically fell inside, slammed the lobby button. As the doors closed, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The lights in the office were coming back on. Not the fluorescent overheads, different light, warmer, softer, the kind of light that comes from desk lamps and computer screens. And in that light, I could see them. People, dozens of people, sitting at desks, standing by the water cooler, walking down the hallways. All dressed in business casual, all moving with purpose, all completely solid and real. An entire office full of workers who shouldn't exist. The elevator door shut, blocking my view. I made it to the lobby, stumbling out like I'd been running. The security guard looked up, actually paying attention now. "You okay?" "You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed. "Is anyone else in the building?" "On 6. 6? That floor's been empty for a year. Why?" "Are you sure? You haven't seen anyone go up there?" He shook his head. "I've been here since 6 p.m. You're the first person who's even gone to that floor. Check the cameras. Please, just check." He sighed but pulled up the security feed on his monitor. Found the 6th floor camera. The screen showed exactly what I'd expect. An empty, dark office. No lights except for the emergency exit signs. No people, no movement. Just empty space. "See? Nothing there. You sure you're okay?" I wasn't okay. But I nodded, signed out, left the building on shaky legs. Sat in my car for a long time, trying to process what I'd seen, what I'd heard. That woman on the phone, insisting everyone was there. The computer that shouldn't work. The fresh coffee. The people I'd seen in those last seconds before the elevator closed. I called Rick. "Hey, it's me. Question about the Pearson building, 6th floor. What about it? What happened to the company that used to be there? Why'd they leave?" "Why are you asking?" His tone was cautious. "Just curious." He was quiet for a moment. "Look, I'm not supposed to talk about it, but since you're cleaning up there, they didn't leave. The company went under suddenly. Some kind of financial scandal. One day they were operating normally. Next day, federal agents showed up, seized all their computers and files, froze their accounts. What happened to the employees? Some went to jail, some disappeared, I don't know. The whole thing was messy. Happened about a year ago." "Anyone die?" Long pause. "Why would you ask that?" "Rick, did anyone die?" "There were rumors. Nothing confirmed. But some of the employees, after the company went under, a few of them committed suicide. Couldn't handle the disgrace, the financial ruin. One guy supposedly did it in his office before the building was cleared out." My stomach turned. "Which office?" "I don't know the details." "Why? What happened up there?" I told him. The coffee, the phone call, the computer, what I'd seen in the elevator. He listened without interrupting. "Jesus," he said finally. "Okay, don't go back there. I'll send someone else." "You believe me? I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've cleaned a lot of empty buildings, some of them aren't as empty as they should be. 6th floor of the Pearson building? Other cleaners have mentioned weird stuff. That's why I thought it would be easy for you. Most of it's just in your head, just creepy vibes. But what you're describing, it's not in my head. I know. That's why you're not going back. I should have listened, should have stayed away, let someone else deal with it. But Tuesday night, Rick called. The guy I sent to replace you, he quit. Said he heard voices, saw someone walking around when he was alone. I need you to go back, just one more time. Pack up our equipment, make it look like we're done with the contract. You can't be serious? Double pay. In and out, 30 minutes max. Just grab our vacuum and cleaning supplies, leave the keys with security. That's it. I needed the money. Rent was due and I was already behind. Triple pay, I said. Done. So Friday night, 1 week after my first visit, I went back. This time I arrived earlier, 9 p.m., before the building fully emptied. Figured there was safety in timing, like maybe whatever was up there only manifested late at night. The same security guard was at the desk. He recognized me, gave me a sympathetic look. Heard you had a weird night last week. You could say that. Be quick, yeah? That floor gives me the creeps even on the cameras. I took the elevator up. The doors opened on 6, and the lights came on automatically. Empty office, just like last time, but it felt different now, heavier. Like the air itself was weighted with something I couldn't name. Our cleaning cart was in the supply closet. I rolled it out, started gathering the equipment we'd need to return. Vacuum, mop, bottles of cleaner. Worked fast, didn't look around too much, tried not to think about what I'd seen. That's when I noticed the cubicles. They weren't empty anymore. Personal items covered the desks. Framed photos, coffee mugs, desk organizers, keyboards, and monitors that were definitely plugged in. Some desks had jackets draped over the chair backs. One had a half-eaten sandwich sitting on a wrapper. All of this had appeared in 1 week, in an office no one could access except for cleaners. My hands froze on the vacuum handle. I looked closer at one of the photos on a nearby desk. A woman in her 30s, smiling, arms around 2 kids. Professional headshot kind of photo. Behind it, a calendar was pinned to the cubicle wall. October 2024. Today's date was circled with a note. Henderson deadline. The same report the woman on the phone had asked about. I picked up the photo carefully, turned it over. Written on the back in neat handwriting, Jennifer Walters. Always remember what matters. Jennifer Walters, the name from the computer files, the name from the desk where I'd gotten the phone call. I set the photo down and noticed something else. The computer on this desk was on, screen glowing. The same desktop I'd seen last week, but now there were more windows open. An email client showing unread messages. A document being edited. The cursor was blinking in the middle of a sentence like someone had just stopped typing. Like someone was still here, working, just invisible. Hello, I called out. My voice echoed in the empty space. Jennifer. No answer. But I felt it, that sensation of being watched. Multiple eyes on me. I turned slowly, scanning the office. In the reflection of a darkened window, I saw them. The office was full. People at every desk, walking down hallways, clustered around the water cooler. A whole workforce, busy and alive. But when I looked directly at where they should be, there was nothing. Only in the reflection could I see them. One of them was looking right at me. A woman at Jennifer's desk. She was middle-aged, professional clothes, her expression confused and afraid. She stood up, started walking toward me. In the window's reflection, I watched her approach. But in real space, I saw nothing, just empty floor. She stopped a few feet away. In the reflection, she was close enough to touch. Her mouth moved, saying something I couldn't hear. Then, faintly, like it was coming from very far away, "Help us." "I can't," I whispered. "I don't know how. We're stuck." Her voice was clearer now, like the volume was increasing. "We're stuck here and we don't know why. One day we were working, and then everything stopped. But we can't leave. We keep coming back to work. keep trying to finish our projects, but nothing moves forward. Nothing changes. We're trapped in the same day, over and over. More voices joined hers, a chorus of trapped workers, all speaking at once. We don't understand what happened. The federal agents came. They took everything. Marcus killed himself in his office. We heard the gunshot. And then we were stuck. Stuck here. Can't leave. Please help us. The voices grew louder, more desperate, overlapping until I couldn't distinguish individual words. Just a wall of sound, of fear and confusion and desperate need. I backed toward the elevator, my eyes fixed on the window's reflection. The office was crowded now, dozens of people pressing forward, all reaching toward me, all begging silently for help I didn't know how to give. The elevator dinged behind me. I spun around, expecting it to be empty. It wasn't. A man stood inside, middle-aged, business suit, hollow eyes. He looked solid, real, more substantial than the reflections I'd been seeing. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Who are you?" "Marcus Thompson. I was the CFO." He smiled sadly. "I'm also dead. Killed myself in my office when I realized what we'd done. The fraud, the stolen money, the lives we ruined. Couldn't face it." "You did that?" I said. "You and the others?" "The fraud." "Yes. And now we're all paying for it. All of us, guilty and innocent alike. Trapped in the day everything fell apart. Reliving it. Forever. There has to be a way to help them. To let them go." He shook his head. "There isn't. We're bound here. By guilt, by shock, by the moment everything collapsed. This office was our identity, our purpose, our crime. Now, it's our prison." Jennifer Walters, did she know about the fraud? No, she was innocent, just an analyst doing her job. But she's stuck here with the rest of us because she was here that day. Wrong place, wrong time, like most of them. "That's not fair." "No," he agreed, "it's not. But that's how haunting works, isn't it? The innocent and the guilty, all trapped together by the weight of what happened." The elevator started to close. He didn't stop it. "Don't come back here," he said as the door shut. "There's nothing you can do. We're beyond help." I stood there in the empty hallway, surrounded by workers I could only see in reflections, listening to voices that grew fainter and fainter until they faded entirely into silence. Grabbed the cleaning cart, left the key card with security, walked out of the Pearson building and didn't look back. That was 2 months ago. I quit the cleaning job the next day. Couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't risk running into something else like that. I've thought about the 6th floor a lot since then. About Jennifer Walters, trapped at her desk, trying to finish a report that will never matter. About Marcus Thompson, guilty and self-aware but just as stuck as everyone else. About all of them, showing up to work every day in an office that no longer exists. Living the same day over and over. I looked up the company after I left. Found articles about the scandal. Empire Financial Solutions, they were called. A Ponzi scheme that defrauded investors of millions. 3 executives went to jail. 2 committed suicide. Dozens of employees lost everything. Their jobs, their reputations, their savings. Jennifer Walters was mentioned in one article. She'd been one of the innocent ones, cleared of any wrongdoing. But the stress of the investigation, the shame by association, the loss of her career. 6 months after the company collapsed, she overdosed on sleeping pills. Intentional or accidental, the article didn't say. She died, but she's still showing up to work. They all are. The building owner finally gave up trying to rent out the 6th floor. According to the property listings, it's now labeled as under renovation indefinitely, which is code for, we can't get tenants because something's wrong with it. I drive past the Pearson building sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep. The 6th floor is always dark from the street, but occasionally, if I look at the reflection of the building in the windows across the street, I can see lights on, can see shapes moving behind the glass. They're still there, still working, still trapped in October 2023, the day their world fell apart. To this day, I don't know if I could have helped them, if there was something I should have done, some way to break the cycle, or if Marcus was right, that they're simply beyond help. But I think about Jennifer Walters a lot, about how she'd been innocent, just trying to do her job, and ended up paying the price for other people's crimes, first in life, then in death. If you ever work late in an office building, if you're there after hours when everyone should be gone, pay attention. If you see fresh coffee that shouldn't be there, hear phones that shouldn't ring, see lights where there should be darkness, leave. Don't investigate, don't try to help, don't pick up the phone, because some workplaces become prisons. Some office workers never leave, even after they die. And sometimes the worst part of a job isn't the long hours or the difficult work. It's realizing you're going to be doing it forever. I cleaned an office that should have been empty, but it wasn't empty. It was full of people who couldn't leave, couldn't move on, couldn't escape the worst day of their lives. And they're still there, still working, still trying to finish projects that will never be completed, still trapped in cubicles that exist only in reflections and memories, and the space between what is and what was. I hope someday they find peace, but I don't think they will. Some prisons don't have doors, some workplaces become tombs, and some cleaning jobs should never be accepted. Story 2. The apartment that wanted me to stay. Finding an affordable apartment in San Francisco felt impossible. I'd been looking for 3 months, getting outbid on studios, watching one-bedrooms get snatched up within hours of listing. My budget was tight, and the city's rental market was brutal. I was about ready to give up and move back to Sacramento when I found it. The listing almost seemed too good to be true. 1 bedroom in the Richmond district, hardwood floors, updated kitchen, street parking included. Rent was at least $500 below market rate. I called immediately, expecting it to already be taken. "When can you see it?" the landlord asked. Her name was Eleanor, voice warm and grandmotherly. "I have time this afternoon if you're available." I met her at the building 2 hours later. It was an older structure, built in the 1920s, brick exterior with bay windows. 4 units total, quiet street lined with similar buildings. Eleanor met me at the door, a woman in her 70s with silver hair pulled back in a bun. "You're Sarah, yes? Come, I'll show you the apartment." It was on the 2nd floor, rear unit. She unlocked the door, and we stepped inside. The place was perfect. Sunlight streaming through large windows, gleaming hardwood floors, crown molding, a kitchen with actual counter space. The bedroom had built-in bookshelves and a window overlooking a small garden. Everything was clean, freshly painted, ready to move in. "Why is the rent so low?" I asked, suspicious of the catch. Eleanor smiled. "I inherited this building from my mother. She always believed in fair rent and helping young people get established. I try to honor that." And the previous tenant. Something flickered across her face. "Moved out about a month ago. Decided to relocate for work. I should have asked more questions. Should have wondered why such a perfect apartment sat empty for a month in one of the tightest rental markets in the country. But I was desperate, and it was beautiful, and the rent was manageable." "I'll take it," I said. Eleanor's smile widened. "Wonderful. I had a feeling about you. When can you move in?" 2 weeks later, I was hauling boxes up the stairs. A few neighbors helped, the couple in the unit below mine, the woman across the hall. Everyone seemed friendly, welcoming. The building felt safe, cozy, the kind of place you could actually call home. That first night, I fell asleep in my new bedroom feeling grateful and relieved. Finally, A place of my own in the city. Finally, stability. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of the front door closing. Sat up in bed, heart racing. Had I imagined it? I listened hard. Silence. The apartment was dark, still, but I was sure I'd heard my front door close. That specific sound of the latch clicking into place. Got up, checked the door, locked. Both the knob and the deadbolt, just as I'd left them. I looked through the peephole, empty hallway. Nothing. Probably just sounds from another unit, I told myself. Old building, sounds travel. Went back to bed, took a while to fall asleep. The next morning, my keys were on the kitchen counter. I distinctly remembered leaving them on the hook by the door. But there they were, by the coffee maker, like I'd set them down while making breakfast. Weird. But I was still unpacking, still getting used to the space. Easy to misremember where I'd put things. Over the next week, small things kept happening. Objects moved when I wasn't looking. My favorite mug would migrate from the cabinet to the dish drainer. Books I'd shelved would be stacked on the coffee table. The thermostat would adjust itself, always warmer, like the apartment wanted to be cozy. I mentioned it to my neighbor downstairs. Her name was Vanessa, mid-30s, had lived in the building for 5 years. "Oh, that happens sometimes," she said, waving it off. "Old buildings settle, things shift. You get used to it. Things don't just move on their own. Maybe you're moving them and forgetting. I do that all the time when I'm stressed." Maybe she was right. The move had been stressful. New job, new city, new apartment. I could be more forgetful than usual. But then the door thing started. I'd leave for work, lock the door behind me, come home to find it unlocked. Not broken into. Everything inside was fine. Nothing disturbed. Just unlocked, like someone had opened it from the inside. I asked Eleanor about it. She came up to check the lock, tested it multiple times. "Seems fine to me. Are you sure you're locking it when you leave?" "I'm sure. I check it twice every time." "Maybe the lock is worn. I'll have it replaced." She did. New deadbolt, new lock mechanism. Gave me fresh keys. For 2 days, everything was fine. Then I came home from work to find my door not just unlocked, but slightly open. Not wide open, just ajar, like someone had closed it, but not quite latched it. My stomach dropped. This time I called the police. They came, checked the apartment, found no signs of forced entry or burglary. Nothing stolen, nothing disturbed. The officer looked at me with barely concealed skepticism. "Ma'am, is it possible you forgot to close the door all the way when you left?" "No, I locked it. I know I did. These old buildings, sometimes the door frame shifts. The latch doesn't catch properly. The lock is brand new." He shrugged. "I'll file a report, but without evidence of a crime." After he left, I sat in my apartment feeling foolish and afraid. Was I losing my mind? Forgetting to lock my door, forgetting where I put things, imagining sounds in the night. I started documenting everything, took photos of where I left objects, time-stamped them, wrote down every detail of my routine when leaving, checking the door, testing the lock, walking away. Tried to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. The photos showed things moving, keys that changed locations, books that rearranged themselves. My favorite sweater that I'd left on the bed but was now hanging in the closet. And the thermostat. I'd set it to 68 degrees. Every morning, it was at 74. Every single morning. I set up my laptop to record while I was at work. Just the webcam, pointed at the living room. If something was moving things, maybe I'd catch it on video. Watched the footage that evening. 8 hours of nothing. Empty apartment, afternoon light moving across the floor, shadows shifting. Then, around 2 p.m., my coffee table book moved. Just slid across the table about 6 inches. No one touching it. No earthquake. Just movement. I played it back 3 times. The book definitely moved on its own. "Okay," I said aloud to my empty apartment. "What the hell is going on?" The lights flickered, just once, quick, like a response. My mouth went dry. "Is someone here?" No response, just silence. But the air felt different, charged, expectant, like someone was listening. Over the next few days, I noticed more things. The apartment was always comfortable. Perfect temperature, perfect lighting. When I was tired, the lighting would dim slightly, soothing. When I needed to wake up, the sunlight through the windows seemed brighter, like the apartment was taking care of me. It should have been comforting. Instead, it was unsettling. This place was paying too much attention, knew too much about what I needed. I tried to leave one Saturday morning, just for the day, going to meet friends in Oakland. Packed a bag, grabbed my keys, headed for the door. The lock wouldn't turn. The key went in fine, but the deadbolt wouldn't budge. I tried for 5 minutes, jiggling the key, pushing and pulling the door. Nothing. Called Eleanor. She came up, tried her master key. It wouldn't work either. "That's strange. This lock is brand new." She examined it, confused. "I'll call a locksmith. I need to leave now. I have plans." "Use the fire escape. Go out the bedroom window." I did. Climbed down the metal stairs feeling ridiculous. Met my friends, had a good day. Tried not to think about my apartment's malfunctioning lock. When I came home that evening, the door opened normally. No issues, like nothing had been wrong. I stood in my doorway, staring at the lock. It had worked fine for Eleanor to let herself in, she'd said in her text. No locksmith needed. Problem somehow resolved itself. The apartment hadn't wanted me to leave. That thought crystallized in my mind like ice. This place, this space, was keeping me here, keeping me comfortable, taking care of me, making sure I stayed. I called the landlord. "Eleanor, I need to know about the previous tenant, the one before me." Pause. "What about them? Why did they really leave?" "I told you." "They relocated for work." "Please, I need the truth." Long silence. Then, her name was Amy. She lived there for 3 years, loved the place at first, then started saying it was attached to her, that it didn't want her to leave. She started feeling trapped. Did things move? Did the door lock when she tried to leave? Yes. How did you know? Because it's happening to me. Eleanor sighed heavily. I was afraid of that. It's the apartment, Sarah. Something about that space, it bonds with certain people, gets attached. I've owned this building for 30 years, and that unit has always been particular about its tenants. That's insane. Apartments don't get attached to people. I know how it sounds, but I've seen it happen 5 times now. Young women living alone, staying in that unit. The apartment takes care of them, makes itself perfect for them, and then it doesn't want to let them go. What happened to Amy? How did she leave? She stopped trying to fight it, accepted that she lived there, that the apartment wanted her. She finally left when she got engaged, moved in with her fiancé. The apartment let her go eventually, but it took months. My hands were shaking. You should have told me this before I moved in. Would you have believed me? Would you have taken it seriously? Eleanor's voice was sad, and I needed a tenant. The apartment can't stay empty long. It gets worse when it's empty. Worse how? Violent, angry. Things break, walls crack, pipes burst. It needs someone to care for, someone to keep. I felt sick. So you're saying I'm trapped here until this apartment decides to let me go? I'm saying you need to establish boundaries. Show it you're in control, not the other way around. And yes, eventually, when you're ready to move on, it will let you. They all have, in time. How much time? Amy was there 3 years. The tenant before her 4. Before that 5. Years. I'd be stuck here for years. I tried to leave again the next morning. Packed a suitcase, planning to go stay with friends until I figured things out. The door wouldn't open, at all. Locked from the inside, but neither lock would turn. The window was stuck. The fire escape window wouldn't budge. I was locked in. Panic set in. I called Eleanor, called the fire department, explained I was trapped. They showed up within 20 minutes, but by the time they arrived, the door opened fine. The firefighters checked everything, found no issues. Looked at me like I was wasting their time. After they left, I slid down the wall in my hallway, breathing hard. The apartment had let them in, had worked normally for them, but it hadn't wanted to let me out. "Why are you doing this?" I asked the empty space. "What do you want?" The lights dimmed slightly, warmly. The temperature adjusted to perfect comfort. The radiator clanked gently, a soothing sound. It wanted me to stay, to be comfortable, to be home. Over the next week, I tested the boundaries, tried to leave at different times, different ways. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. The pattern became clear. I could leave for work, for groceries, for necessary errands. But when I tried to leave with luggage or for extended time, the apartment would trap me. It was okay with me going out. It wasn't okay with me leaving. I talked to Amy, the previous tenant. Eleanor gave me her number. We met for coffee, and she looked relieved to have someone who understood. "It loved me," she said simply. That apartment genuinely cared about me, made sure I was comfortable, safe, happy, but it was possessive, jealous if I spent too much time away, angry if I talked about moving. How did you finally get out? I stopped trying to escape. I accepted it, lived there, let it take care of me, stopped fighting, and gradually it relaxed, trusted me more. When James proposed, when I told the apartment I was leaving to build a life with someone I loved, it understood. It took a month, but it let me go. A month? During that month, things got difficult. Cold spots, objects breaking, the door locking randomly. It was angry, but eventually it accepted that I was leaving, and it let me pack, let me go. She looked at me with sympathy. "You're stuck there, Sarah. The sooner you accept that, the easier it'll be." "I can't just accept being trapped." "Then you'll fight it for years, and it'll win. It always does." I didn't want to believe her. But as weeks turned into months, I realized she was right. The apartment wasn't going to let me go. I could either fight it and be miserable, or accept it and at least be comfortable. So I stopped trying to leave. Stopped packing bags. Stopped looking at other apartment listings. Settled in. Made it truly my home. And the apartment responded, became even more attentive. Lights always perfect, temperature always right. Small touches appeared. Fresh flowers on the kitchen counter that I didn't buy. My favorite tea restocked before I ran out. Like the apartment was rewarding me for staying. It should have been terrifying. And it was, sometimes. But it was also nice. Living somewhere that cared about you, that wanted you to be happy. In a city where everything was expensive and difficult and impersonal, this apartment offered something else. Belonging. Being wanted. I started to understand why Amy had stayed 3 years. 6 months passed. I stopped thinking about leaving. Work was good. Friends visited the apartment. It always let guests in and out, no problems. And I was comfortable. The weirdness became normal. The apartment moved things, adjusted temperature, locked the door when it thought I shouldn't leave. I learned its moods, its boundaries. We coexisted. Then I met David. At a work conference, completely unexpected. He was kind, funny, shared my love of terrible action movies. We started dating. At first, just dinners and movies, keeping it outside my apartment. But eventually, he wanted to see where I lived. The first time I brought him over, the apartment behaved perfectly, charming even. The lighting was flattering, the temperature comfortable. David loved the place, couldn't believe the rent. "You got so lucky," he said, looking around. "This place is amazing." "Yeah," I said, "lucky." We started spending more time together. He'd stay over sometimes. The apartment tolerated it at first, but after a few weeks, things started happening. Cold drafts when David was there. The thermostat would drop to 60 degrees, lights would flicker, small things would fall off shelves when he walked past. "Your apartment doesn't like me," he joked one evening after a book fell and nearly hit him. He meant it as a joke, but he was right. The apartment was jealous. It got worse when I started staying at his place. I'd wake up the next morning to 15 texts from Eleanor. Pipes burst, heat not working, electrical issues. All in my apartment, all requiring me to come home immediately. "It's falling apart without you," Eleanor said when I rushed back to find nothing actually wrong. "You need to spend more time here, Sarah." "I'm seeing someone. I'm going to spend time at his place too." "The apartment doesn't like that." "Too bad. It's not my keeper." But it was. When I tried to stay overnight at David's, my door at home would be found wide open, setting off alarms. My plants would be dying despite being fine the day before. Things would break, windows, pipes, appliances, all requiring me to come home and deal with them. The apartment was throwing tantrums, demanding attention, punishing me for leaving. David noticed. "Sarah, I think you need to move. This place is causing you too much stress." "I can't move." "Why not?" "Break the lease. Find somewhere else." "It's complicated." "How complicated can it be?" "It's just an apartment." But it wasn't just an apartment. And when I tried to explain, when I tried to tell him the truth, he looked at me like I was crazy. "You think your apartment is alive?" "Sarah, you need to talk to someone." "I'm not making it up. It locks me in. It breaks things when I'm away. You're having some kind of breakdown. Let me help you." He didn't believe me, thought I was delusional. We fought about it, tension building until finally he said, "Choose. Me or this apartment. Because I can't date someone who's having a psychotic break about where they live." I wanted to choose him. Wanted to pack my things and leave, start fresh, be with someone who cared about me. But the apartment wouldn't let me. The door wouldn't open when I tried to leave with David. The locks jammed again, windows stuck shut. I was trapped. David left, ended things, looked at me with pity and frustration as he walked out, the door opening easily for him, but not for me. I slid to the floor and cried, not just for losing David, but for the realization that the apartment had won, would always win. It had isolated me, driven away someone I cared about, ensured I had nothing else. Just this space, just these walls, just the apartment that wanted me to stay. That was 3 years ago. I'm still here, in the apartment. 28 now, living in the same one-bedroom in the Richmond district. I stopped dating, stopped trying to leave, stopped fighting. The apartment takes care of me, keeps me comfortable, safe, content in its possessive way. I work from home now, had to, since leaving for the office became too difficult. Groceries get delivered. Friends visit less and less because something about this place makes them uncomfortable. Eleanor checks on me sometimes, brings food, asks how I'm doing. I can see the guilt in her eyes. She trapped me here, knowing what would happen, needing a tenant to keep the apartment stable. "Any plans to move?" she always asks, hopeful. "Where would I go?" I always reply. Amy got out after 3 years, but she had someone to leave for, something strong enough to make the apartment let go. I don't have that. Don't have anything pulling me away stronger than the apartment pulls me to stay. So I stay. Live here, in this space that loves me in its own suffocating way. Sleep in the bedroom with perfect lighting, eat in the kitchen that always smells like home, sit in the living room where the temperature is always exactly right. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I just gave up trying to leave at all, stopped even thinking about it, let the apartment have me completely. Would that be peaceful? Would I stop feeling trapped if I stopped wanting escape? I don't know, and I'm afraid to find out. To this day, I can't explain what this place is. A haunting, some kind of sentient structure, a manifestation of loneliness so strong it took physical form. The building is old, has seen hundreds of tenants over decades. Maybe all that human life, all that emotion, soaked into the walls of this particular unit until it learned to feel, learned to want, learned to keep. If you're apartment hunting in San Francisco, if you find a place with rent too good to be true, with a landlord who seems too eager for you to move in, with a space that feels immediately like home, be careful. Ask questions. Research the history. Talk to previous tenants if you can. Because some places don't just house you. Some places claim you, keep you, love you in a way that's beautiful and terrible and inescapable. I live in an apartment that wants me to stay, needs me to stay, won't let me leave, and some days I'm not even sure I want to anymore. The worst part about being trapped isn't the locked doors or the stuck windows or the boundary-testing fights with something you can't reason with. The worst part is when you stop fighting, when you settle in, when you accept that this is home now, will be home forever, and some small part of you is grateful for it. Because at least something wants you. At least something cares enough to keep you. Even if that something is just walls and floors and ceiling and doors. Even if that something will never let you go. The apartment wanted me to stay, and eventually I stopped wanting to leave. Story 3, the doorman who never worked here. I moved into the Belmont Apartments in February, right after graduating college. It was one of those pre-war buildings in Brooklyn, the kind with high ceilings and radiators that clanged at odd hours. Rent was surprisingly affordable for the neighborhood, which should have been my first red flag. The building had that old New York charm, marble lobby, brass mailboxes, an elevator with an accordion gate that you had to close yourself. 12 floors, maybe 40 units total. Most of the tenants were young professionals like me, plus a few older residents who'd been there for decades. There was a doorman. That's what made the rent make sense. Having a doorman in Brooklyn at that price was basically unheard of. His name was Thomas, according to the nameplate on his desk. I met him my first day moving in. He was older, maybe 60s, wearing a slightly outdated uniform, dark green with brass buttons, the kind doormen wore back in the 80s. He had this formal, old-fashioned way of speaking. "Good morning, Miss Reyes. Welcome to the Belmont. I'm Thomas. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." "Thanks. Good to meet you." He helped me carry boxes, held doors, gave me advice about which elevator was more reliable. Seemed like a nice guy. A little old school, but friendly. Over the next few weeks, I got into a routine. Thomas was always there when I left for work in the morning, always there when I came home at night. He knew everyone's names, accepted packages, called cabs before you even asked. The kind of doorman who made you feel like you lived somewhere fancier than you actually did. About a month after I moved in, I was checking my mail in the lobby when another tenant came in. Guy from the 8th floor, I'd seen him around. "Hey," he said, nodding at me, then louder toward the desk. "Thomas, I'm expecting a delivery today. Can you call me when it arrives?" I looked over. The desk was empty. Thomas wasn't there. "He must be on break," I said. The guy gave me a weird look. "Who?" "Thomas, the doorman." "We don't have a doorman." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "Yeah, we do, Thomas. He's here every day." "Lady, I've lived here for 3 years. We've never had a doorman. The building can't afford it." He left before I could respond. I stood there staring at the empty desk, at the nameplate that said Thomas, at the logbook where he wrote down deliveries. That didn't make sense. I'd talked to Thomas that very morning. He'd held the door for me, commented on the cold weather. I saw him every single day. I went up to my apartment on the 4th floor, tried to shake off the confusion. That guy was wrong. Had to be. Maybe he was new and didn't know about Thomas, but he'd said 3 years. That evening, I made a point of talking to Thomas when I came home from work. "Hey Thomas, quick question. How long have you worked here?" He smiled, that same formal, friendly smile. "Oh, quite some time now, Miss Reyes. Must be going on 30 years. 30 years? Wow, you've seen a lot of changes then." "Indeed. The Belmont has always been my home in a way. I take pride in caring for its residents." "That's really dedicated. The building is lucky to have you." He nodded graciously and returned to his desk. "See, he was real. He worked here. That guy from the 8th floor was just confused." But the next day, I mentioned Thomas to my co-worker over lunch. "Your building has a doorman? In Brooklyn? What's the rent?" I told her. "No way. That's way too cheap for a doorman building. Are you sure?" "I see him every day. His name is Thomas." She pulled out her phone, searched for the Belmont Apartments, found the building's website. I leaned over to look. Under amenities, it listed laundry and building, elevator, bike storage. No mention of a doorman. "Maybe they just didn't list it," I said weakly. "Or maybe you're seeing things," she teased. But her expression was concerned. That evening, I paid more attention to the lobby. Thomas was at his desk, as always. But something felt different now that I was really looking. His uniform was outdated. Not vintage chic, but genuinely old. Worn at the cuffs, a button missing that had been replaced with one that didn't quite match. The desk he sat at was scarred and ancient, the chair upholstered in cracked leather. And now that I thought about it, I'd never seen him eat, never seen him on his phone, never seen him interact with anyone except to help them with doors or packages. "Thomas?" I approached his desk. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, Miss Reyes. Do other people see you? Talk to you?" He tilted his head slightly, his expression unchanging. "I serve all the residents of the Belmont, ma'am." "That's not what I asked." He smiled, but it seemed sadder now. "I'm here for those who need me. Some people see me, some don't. It doesn't change my purpose." My mouth went dry. "What do you mean, some people see you?" "I should get back to work." He turned away, began sorting mail that had already been sorted. I went upstairs, my heart pounding. Something was very wrong. I started asking other tenants about Thomas, casually, trying not to seem crazy. The woman in 4B, Mrs. Rodriguez, lit up when I mentioned him. "Oh yes, Thomas, such a gentleman. He's been here as long as I have, maybe longer." "How long have you lived here?" 28 years. The couple in 6A looked at me blankly. "Doorman?" "No, there's no doorman." "Guy in 9C. You mean the desk in the lobby?" "That's been empty since I moved in. 5 years now." "Woman in 3F. Thomas?" "Yes, lovely man. He helped me with my groceries just yesterday." Half the building saw him, half didn't, and the ones who did were all older tenants, people who'd been there for decades. Everyone newer, everyone young, insisted there was no doorman. I went to the building manager's office on the 2nd floor. Mrs. Yang had managed the Belmont for 15 years. "I wanted to ask about Thomas," I said. "The doorman." Her expression shifted, became guarded. "Why are you asking?" Some people say we have a doorman, some say we don't. I wanted to confirm." She was quiet for a long moment. "Sit down, please." I sat. "The Belmont hasn't had a doorman in over 40 years, she said carefully. "Can't afford it. Never could. The desk in the lobby is just for show. a relic from when the building was fancier. But I see him every day. Thomas. He wears a green uniform. He helps with packages. I know. She cut me off. Some people do see him. I've learned not to argue about it. What does that mean? She sighed, rubbed her temples. When I first started managing this building, I thought the older tenants were confused. They'd talk about Thomas like he was real, ask me to give him messages, thank him for his help. I'd explain there was no doorman. They'd insist there was. And one day I came in early, around 5 a.m., wanted to check on some maintenance issue. The lobby was empty, or it should have been, but I saw him, Thomas, standing at his desk, straightening papers like he was starting his shift. She paused. I blinked, and he was gone. But I saw him, just for a moment. My hands were shaking. What is he? I don't know. A ghost, maybe. An imprint of something. The building's history made manifest. There's no rational explanation. Has anyone tried to find out who he was? If he actually existed? I did some research. Found old employee records in the basement. There was a doorman named Thomas Brennan who worked here from 1952 to 1983. 31 years. He lived in the building, too, in a little apartment in the basement that's storage now. According to the records, he died in 1983. Heart attack, right at his desk in the lobby. He died here? Yes, and apparently never left. Mrs. Yang leaned forward. Here's what I've figured out. People who need him see him. People who are lonely, or new to the city, or going through something difficult. He appears to them, helps them, makes them feel less alone. The rest of the building goes about their business, not seeing him at all. But I'm not. I'm fine. She gave me a knowing look. Are you? New to the city, first apartment alone, probably feeling isolated. That's exactly the kind of person Thomas helps. I thought about it. She wasn't wrong. Moving to New York had been harder than I'd expected. I didn't have many friends here yet. Work was stressful. Most nights I came home to an empty apartment and felt completely alone. And Thomas had been there every day. A friendly face. Someone who knew my name. Someone who made the building feel less like a cold, anonymous place and more like home. Is he dangerous? I asked. No, never. He just helps. That's all he does. He's been doing it for 40 years. What happens if I acknowledge that I know? That I know he's not real? I don't know. Most people who see him never question it. They just accept that the building has a doorman. I left her office, feeling shaken, went back to the lobby. Thomas was there, at his desk, reading a newspaper from 1983. I could see the date now that I was looking for it. He looked up, smiled. Everything all right, Miss Reyes? You're dead, I said quietly. You died 40 years ago. His smile didn't falter. Yes. But you're still here. Yes. Why? He set down the newspaper, folded his hands. I loved this building. Loved taking care of it, taking care of the people who lived here. When I died, I suppose I just couldn't leave. This was my purpose. It still is. Don't you want to, I don't know, move on, rest? This is my rest, Miss Reyes. Doing what I loved, helping people, making them feel welcome and safe. Why would I give that up? I didn't have an answer for that. Over the next few weeks, I watched Thomas more carefully, watched how he interacted with different people. Mrs. Rodriguez treated him like an old friend, chatted with him about the weather and her grandchildren. Mr. Sullivan in 3F, an elderly man whose wife had recently died, would sit in the lobby for hours just to have someone to talk to. Thomas always had time for him. but the young couple in 7B walked right past him without acknowledgement. The grad student in 8A checked his mail without even glancing at the desk. They literally couldn't see him. I started to understand. Thomas appeared to people who needed him, who needed that human connection, that sense of being cared for. He was a ghost, yes, but a benevolent one, a guardian of sorts. One evening, I came home after a particularly bad day at work. I'd been yelled at by my boss, felt completely inadequate, wanted nothing more than to go to my apartment and cry. Thomas saw my face immediately. "Rough day, Miss Reyes?" "The worst. Would you like to sit for a moment?" I was just making tea. He gestured to a small electric kettle I'd never noticed before. Probably wasn't really there. I sat in the chair beside his desk. He poured me a cup of tea that smelled like chamomile and honey. It was warm in my hands, real, comforting. "You know what I've learned in my years here," he said quietly. "That bad days pass, that you're stronger than you think, and that having someone who believes in you makes all the difference. You don't even really know me. I know you're trying. I know you moved to this city alone, which takes courage. I know you're working hard, even when it's difficult. That's enough for me to believe in you." I started crying, couldn't help it. All the stress and loneliness and fear I'd been holding in just came out. Thomas handed me a handkerchief, actual cloth, monogrammed with his initials. Let me cry without judgment, without trying to fix anything. Just sat there, a kind presence in a lonely city. When I finally stopped, I looked at him, really looked at him, at this ghost who'd stayed behind because he loved helping people, who'd been doing this for 40 years, never resting, never moving on, just continuing his purpose. "Thank you," I said. "That's what I'm here for. Is there anything I can do for you? Anything you need?" He smiled. "Just be well, Miss Reyes. That's all I ever want for any of you." After that night, my relationship with Thomas changed. I didn't try to pretend he wasn't a ghost, but I also didn't treat him like one. He was just Thomas, the doorman who cared about his building. I'd bring him coffee in the mornings, even though I don't think he could drink it. He'd ask about my day and actually listen. When I had friends over, he'd greet them warmly, and I noticed my friends always commented on how nice it was that my building had a doorman. They could see him too when they were in my presence, like his visibility extended to people I cared about. A few months later, I got promoted at work. Better pay, more responsibility. I could afford to move to a nicer apartment in a different building. I went down to the lobby to tell Thomas. "That's wonderful news, Miss Reyes. I'm very proud of you. I'm going to miss you. And I'll miss you. But you're ready to move on. That's the natural order of things. Will you be okay? I've been here 40 years. I'll be here 40 more. There will always be people who need a friendly face, a kind word, someone to hold the door." He smiled. "That's what I'm here for. What if someday there's no one left who can see you?" He considered this. "Then I suppose I'll finally rest. But until then, I'll keep doing what I love." On my last day at the Belmont, I sat in the lobby with Thomas one final time. We didn't talk much, didn't need to, just sat together, doorman and tenant, ghost and human, both grateful for the connection we'd found. "Be well, Miss Reyes," he said as I left. "You too, Thomas." I walked out of the Belmont Apartments for the last time, turned back at the corner to look at the building. Through the window, I could see the lobby, the desk where Thomas sat. It was empty, or at least that's what most people would see. That was 3 years ago. I live in Manhattan now, in a modern building with an actual doorman who checks IDs and signs for packages. It's efficient and professional, and nothing like the Belmont. I miss Thomas. Sometimes I go back to the neighborhood, walk past the old building. I never go in. It wouldn't feel right. Wouldn't feel like home anymore. but I look at the lobby window as I pass. And once in a while I see him, Thomas at his desk, in his green uniform, ready to help whoever needs him next. I asked Mrs. Yang about him recently, called her up out of the blue, asked if he was still there. "Oh yes," she said, "still helping the lonely ones, the new ones, the ones who need someone to care. We got a young man last month, just moved here from Ohio. He sees Thomas every day, thinks it's wonderful that we have such a dedicated doorman. Does he know? Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some people prefer the comfort to the truth. I think about Thomas a lot. About how he died at his desk doing what he loved and decided to keep doing it for eternity. About how love, even for something as simple as a building and its residents, can be powerful enough to transcend death. About how the loneliest city in the world has pockets of kindness, sometimes maintained by people who aren't even alive anymore. I've done research since then, found Thomas Brennan's obituary in the library archives. It was small, barely a paragraph. No family mentioned, no funeral details. Just Thomas Brennan, 68, doorman at the Belmont Apartments for 31 years, died suddenly on August 15, 1983. He was dedicated to his work and will be missed. That was it. His whole life reduced to 3 sentences. But that's not the whole story. The whole story is still being written every day in the lobby of a Brooklyn apartment building. Written by every lonely person who finds a kind face waiting for them. Every new resident who feels welcomed and cared for. Every bad day made better by someone who takes the time to ask if you're okay. Thomas Brennan died in 1983, but he never left his post. He's still there, at his desk, in his worn green uniform, helping people, making them feel less alone, doing what he loved. And maybe that's not such a bad way to spend eternity. To this day, I don't tell people about Thomas. When friends ask about my first apartment in New York, I mention the Belmont, talk about the creaky elevator and the loud radiators, but I don't mention the doorman, because how do you explain that the person who made you feel welcome in a new city was dead? That your most meaningful connection in those lonely first months was with a ghost? You don't. You just feel grateful it happened. Last week, I was having a terrible day. Lost a big client at work, got dumped by someone I'd been dating, felt like everything was falling apart. Walked home in the rain, miserable and alone. As I entered my building, the doorman, the real, living doorman, looked up from his phone. "Rough day?" he asked. "The worst. It gets better. Trust me." For just a second, his voice sounded different, older, kinder. I blinked, and he was just the regular doorman again, already back to his phone. But I felt better. Felt like someone cared, even if just for a moment. Maybe Thomas's influence spread beyond the Belmont. Maybe kindness, once started, ripples outward. Or maybe I just imagined it, wanted to hear his voice again. Doesn't really matter. What matters is this. In a city of 8 million people, where it's easy to feel invisible and alone, there are still those who care. Some of them are alive, some of them aren't. But they're there, holding doors, offering kindness, making sure you know you matter. If you ever move to New York, if you ever find yourself in an older building with a doorman who seems too good to be true, don't question it, don't investigate, just say thank you. Accept the help. Let someone care about you, even if they're not quite real. Because sometimes the most meaningful connections we make are with people who exist in the spaces between what is and what was. And sometimes the ghosts who haunt us aren't there to scare us. They're there to remind us we're not alone. Thomas Brennan has been dead for 40 years, but every night he still goes to work, still holds the door, still remembers everyone's name, still makes people feel welcome in a building he loved enough to never leave. And that's not a haunting. That's dedication. That's love. That's home. Story 4. The mailbox at the end of the road. We moved to rural Montana the summer I turned 14. Middle of nowhere, population 237 according to the weathered sign on the highway. My dad had gotten a job managing a ranch, and my mom was just happy to leave the city. Me? I was furious about leaving my friends, my school, everything I knew. Our new house sat at the end of a dirt road that stretched for 2 miles from the nearest paved street. Just us, sagebrush, mountains in the distance, and silence so complete it made my ears ring. The kind of isolation that people either love or hate. I hated it immediately. The property came with the usual rural stuff. A barn we didn't use, a chicken coop my mom got excited about, a workshop my dad claimed for his tools. And at the very end of our long driveway, right where it met the dirt road, stood a mailbox. It was old, really old, dented metal, paint flaking off. The red flag rusted in the upright position like it had been that way for years. The post leaned slightly to the left, weathered gray wood that looked like it might fall over in a strong wind. "We should replace that," Mom said on moving day, eyeing it from the car. "Add it to the list," Dad replied, already overwhelmed with all the things the property needed. The mailbox stayed. School didn't start for another month, so I spent most of August being bored out of my mind. No neighbors my age, spotty internet, cell service that cut out if you stood in the wrong part of the house. I'd walk our property, explore the barn, try to read books, anything to fill the endless empty hours. About a week after we moved in, I walked down to the mailbox. 2-mile walk round trip, nothing better to do. Figured I'd see what mail we were getting. Maybe there'd be something interesting. The mailbox door creaked when I opened it. Inside were the usual things. Credit card offers addressed to the previous owners, a flyer for a local hardware store, our internet bill, and a letter addressed to me, not resident or current occupant. My actual name, Caitlin Morrison. Handwritten in neat cursive on a plain white envelope. No return address. I opened it right there, standing in the dusty road. Inside was a single piece of paper with one sentence. "Don't go to the barn at sunset." My heart did a weird skip. Some kind of prank. But who even knew we'd moved here? Who knew my name? I looked around. Empty road in both directions. Just fence posts and scrub brush. No houses visible, no cars, no people. Just the wind moving through the tall grass. I stuffed the letter in my pocket and walked home, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. Probably just neighbors being weird, I told myself. Small town stuff, trying to freak out the new kid. That evening, around sunset, I deliberately went to the barn, stood in the doorway looking in at the dusty interior, old hay bales, farm equipment the previous owners had left behind. Nothing happened. No monsters, no jump scares, nothing. See, just a stupid prank. But that night, I heard sounds from the barn, loud banging, like someone was throwing metal things around. It went on for almost an hour. Dad went out there with a flashlight but found nothing. No signs of animals, no evidence of anyone being there. "Probably the wind," he said. But there hadn't been any wind. The next day I went back to the mailbox, told myself I was just being paranoid, that there wouldn't be anything there. There was another letter. Same handwriting, same white envelope. "Don't drink the water from the kitchen tap on Thursday." Today was Tuesday. This time I showed the letter to my parents. "What the hell?" Dad studied it, frowning. "Who's sending these?" "I don't know. The first one told me not to go to the barn at sunset, and then..." "You got another one?" Mom's voice went up. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I thought it was just some prank." Dad drove down to check the mailbox himself, like he might catch someone in the act. Came back with nothing. No tire tracks, no footprints, no sign of anyone having been there. "We should report this to the sheriff," Mom said. "And say what?" "Someone's leaving cryptic notes in our mailbox." Dad shook his head. "They'll think we're crazy city people." So what do? We don't drink tap water on Thursday. Just in case. Thursday came. We drank bottled water, didn't touch the tap. Nothing happened. No issues with the water when we tested it later. It was fine, clean, normal. But Friday morning, the livestock at the ranch Dad managed got sick. Apparently, the automatic waterer had malfunctioned, mixing in contaminated runoff. Half the cattle had to be treated by the vet. Good thing it wasn't our water, Dad said at dinner. Would have been bad. Mom and I exchanged glances. The letter had said Thursday. The cattle got sick Friday, but the contamination would have started Thursday, building up overnight. If we'd drunk that water... It's a coincidence, Dad said, reading our expressions. Has to be. But his voice didn't sound convinced. The letters kept coming. Every few days there'd be a new one in our mailbox. Always handwritten, always a warning. Don't take the shortcut through Peterson's field on Saturday. Stay inside on Monday between 3 and 4 p.m. Don't answer the door if someone knocks after midnight. Some of them made sense after the fact. The Saturday I was supposed to avoid Peterson's field, someone's bull got loose and was charging around. Monday afternoon, during those specific hours, there was a freak hailstorm that shattered the windshield of any car left outside. No one knocked on our door after midnight, so I never knew if that one was real or not. But the warnings were accurate, consistently, impossibly accurate. Someone's watching us, Mom said after the 5th or 6th letter. They have to be. How else would they know these things? We checked for cameras, found nothing. Dad drove around the property perimeter looking for places someone might hide with binoculars. Nothing. The letters knew things that couldn't be known, things that hadn't happened yet. I started getting nervous walking to the mailbox, started dreading what I might find there. But I couldn't stop checking. The warnings had kept us safe so far. What if we missed one? What if something terrible happened because we didn't get the letter in time? Then one day in late September, I found a letter that was different. You need to leave. The house isn't safe. You have 2 weeks. My hands shook as I read it. Leave? Leave our house? We'd just moved here. I ran back, showed my parents. This time, Dad called the sheriff. Sheriff Donnelly came out that afternoon, middle-aged guy with a weathered face and a skeptical expression. He looked at the letters we'd collected, spread them across our kitchen table. Huh, he said. That's strange. Strange? Someone's been threatening us for months. These aren't threats exactly. He picked up one of the letters. They're warnings. And accurate ones, from what you're telling me. So what do we do? Mom asked. He shook his head. I honestly don't know. Could be someone with too much time on their hands. Could be something else. This house have any history we should know about? Like what? You know, deaths, weird occurrences, the usual rural legends. Dad and I exchanged glances. The realtor didn't mention anything. They usually don't. Sheriff Donnelly stood up. I'll ask around, see if anyone knows something about this property. In the meantime, I'd take the warning seriously. If someone knows enough to predict all these other things, maybe they know something about the house too. After he left, we sat in silence. We can't just leave, Dad said finally. I just started this job. We just bought this place. We can't afford to move again. What if the letter's right? I asked. What if something happens? Then we'll be careful. We'll keep our eyes open, but we're not running away because of anonymous letters. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed listening to the house settle, every creak and groan making me jump. 2 weeks. The letter said we had 2 weeks. The next morning, there was another letter. I'm sorry, it's too late. It's already in the house. It? Mom's voice was shrill. What's it? We searched the entire house, top to bottom, every room, every closet, the basement, the attic. Found nothing, no signs of break-in, no evidence of anyone or anything. But things started happening, small things at first. Objects moved when we weren't looking. I'd put my phone on the counter, turn around, and find it on the table. Dad's tools would migrate from the workshop to the porch. Mom's books would be in different rooms than where she'd left them. "We're just being paranoid," Dad insisted. "We're moving things and forgetting. Stress does that." But we all knew better. The temperature in certain rooms would drop suddenly for no reason. We'd hear footsteps upstairs when everyone was downstairs. Doors would close by themselves. Classical haunting stuff. The kind of thing I'd always thought was just stories. On day 5 of the 2-week countdown, I found another letter. "It feeds on fear. Don't give it power. Don't be afraid." Easy to say, harder to do when you're hearing scratching sounds in your walls at night. Mom wanted to leave. Dad was stubborn, refused to be driven out of our own home by parlor tricks. I just wanted it to stop. Day 8, another letter. "The mirror in your bedroom. Cover it." I didn't question it. Hung a sheet over my mirror that night. Couldn't have said why, just felt right. That night, I heard my mom screaming. Ran to my parents' bedroom. Mom was pressed against the far wall, pointing at their mirror. Dad was trying to calm her down, but he looked pale too. "What happened?" "There was someone in the mirror," Mom gasped. "Someone standing behind me, but when I turned around, nothing was there." Dad checked the room, empty of course. "Cover the mirror," I said. "What?" "Just cover it. Please." He did. Used a blanket, draped it over the mirror. The temperature in the room immediately felt warmer. The oppressive feeling that had been building, that sense of being watched, it lessened. Day 10. Letter. "Don't go in the basement after dark." We stopped going in the basement at all, just to be safe. Day 12. Letter. "It's getting stronger. You need to leave tonight, please." The please got to me. Up until now, the letters had been matter-of-fact, instructional. This one sounded desperate. "We should go," I told my parents at dinner. "Stay in town for a few days. Give ourselves time to think. And let whatever this is win." Dad shook his head. "No, we're staying. We're going to figure this out." "Figure what out?" "There's something in this house, Dad. Something that moves things and appears in mirrors, and there's a rational explanation. There has to be." But his voice wavered. He didn't believe it anymore either. That night, day 12, things escalated. All the mirrors in the house started showing reflections that didn't match reality. I'd see myself standing in my room, but the reflection would be in a different position, doing different things. Sometimes the reflection would smile when I wasn't smiling. Sometimes it would just stare. The footsteps got louder, heavier, like something big was walking through our house. And the cold, it was everywhere now. Even with the heat on full blast, our breath came out in white clouds. Around midnight, all the doors in the house slammed shut at once. The sound was deafening, simultaneous, impossible. We huddled together in the living room, the only place that still felt remotely safe. "We're leaving," Mom said. "Right now. Pack what you need. We're going." Dad nodded. No argument this time. We grabbed essentials, threw them in the car. I ran upstairs one last time for my laptop and saw a letter sitting on my bed. Not in the mailbox. In my room. On my bed. My hands shook as I picked it up. "I tried to warn you. I'm sorry I couldn't do more. Don't come back here. Ever. LM. LM." I looked at the envelope the letter had come in. There was something I hadn't noticed before. A faint postmark. So faded I'd missed it on all the other letters. But this one, up close, I could just make it out. October 15th, 1984. These letters were 40 years old. We drove to a motel in town, barely speaking. Stayed there for 3 days while Dad tried to figure out what to do. I researched the property, found old newspaper archives at the library, death records, property transfers, and I found her. Laura Morrison, 14 years old, died in October 1984 at the house we'd just moved into. The articles were vague about the cause of death. Tragic accident was all they said. But reading between the lines, it was clear something had terrified her. Something had been in that house. She'd tried to warn people, tried to leave notes, tried to get help, but no one had believed her, and she died there. 40 years later, her letters were still being delivered, still trying to save people from whatever had killed her, from whatever was still in that house. I showed my parents what I'd found, showed them Laura's obituary, the photo of a girl who looked disturbingly like me. Same dark hair, same age, same last name even. Morrison's not that uncommon, Dad said weakly, but we all knew. Somehow, Laura and I were connected. Maybe distantly related, maybe just coincidence, but connected enough that her warnings could reach me. Sheriff Donnelly came by the motel when we called him, looked at the research, the letters, the dates. I've heard stories about that house, he admitted, but I thought they were just local legend. People said it was cursed, that it killed anyone who stayed there too long. But that was decades ago. I figured it was just talk. So what is it? Mom asked. What's in there? I don't know, but I know you shouldn't go back. We didn't. Dad quit his job. We broke our lease, lost our down payment, didn't care. Moved back to the city within a week. The house sat empty for a few months. Then new tenants moved in. A young couple with a baby. I wanted to warn them, wanted to find a way to send them letters like Laura had sent me. But what would I say? How do you explain something like this without sounding crazy? 3 months after they moved in, the husband was found dead in the basement. Heart attack, they said. But he was 28, healthy, no history of heart problems. His wife and baby moved out immediately. The house has been empty ever since. That was 6 years ago. I'm 20 now in college, living a normal life. But I still think about Laura Morrison, about how she died trying to warn people about something she couldn't escape, about how her letters, written 40 years ago, still found their way to me. I've done more research over the years, found out Laura and I are fourth cousins, some distant branch of the family tree that moved to Montana in the 1970s. She was family, trying to protect family across time. Sometimes I wonder if she's still there, still trying to send warnings. If someone else moves in, will they find letters in the mailbox? Will they be smart enough to listen? I've thought about buying the property myself, burning the house down, salting the earth, doing whatever it takes to end this. But I'm too afraid that destroying the house won't destroy what's in it, that it'll just move somewhere else, find new victims. So it sits there, empty, waiting. The mailbox is still there too, at the end of that long dirt road. Still leaning, still rusted, the flag permanently raised. And sometimes, when I can't sleep, I wonder if there are letters in it. New letters, future letters, warnings that no one will read because no one's there to receive them. To this day, I can't explain what happened in that house. Can't explain how Laura's letters predicted the future, or how mail from 1984 was delivered to me in 2019. Can't explain what lived in that house, what fed on fear, what appeared in mirrors and walked our halls at night. But I know it was real. Know that Laura died trying to stop it. Know that we almost died there too. If you ever find yourself looking at rural properties in Montana, if you see a house at the end of a long dirt road with an old mailbox that leans to the left, Keep driving. Don't stop. Don't inquire. Don't think about how cheap the rent is or how beautiful the property looks. Just keep driving, because some places have things in them that can't be gotten rid of. Things that wait patiently for new victims, new fear to feed on. And sometimes, if you're lucky, someone who came before will try to warn you. Listen to them. Trust the letters in the mailbox. I did, and it saved my life. Story 5. When my security camera moved on its own. Installing the security camera seemed like a smart decision at the time. My apartment had been broken into 3 months earlier. Nothing major stolen, just some cash and an old laptop. But it left me feeling violated and unsafe. The landlord refused to upgrade the locks or add building security, so I took matters into my own hands. I bought one of those smart cameras from Amazon. Nothing fancy, just a basic model that connected to Wi-Fi and sent alerts to my phone when it detected motion. Cost me about $60. The box promised peace of mind and 24/7 monitoring. I set it up in my living room, angled toward the front door so I could see anyone coming or going. The first few weeks were uneventful. I'd get notifications when my cat walked past, when I came home from work, sometimes when shadows shifted near the window. Normal stuff. The camera did its job, and I felt safer knowing I could check on my apartment anytime from my phone. I lived alone in a studio apartment in Austin, Texas, 25 years old, working as a graphic designer, keeping to myself mostly. The building was old, not great, but not terrible. Thin walls, unreliable heating, but the rent was affordable and the location was decent. About a month after installing the camera, I noticed something odd. I was at work, idly checking the live feed on my phone during lunch, and the angle looked different. Not dramatically different, just slightly. Like someone had adjusted it a few degrees to the left. I figured I'd bumped it while cleaning and forgot. When I got home that evening, I adjusted it back to center, made sure it was tight on its mount, went about my night. Made dinner, watched TV, went to bed. The next morning I checked my phone while getting coffee. The camera angle was different again, shifted to the right this time, pointed more toward my kitchen area than the front door. This time I was sure I hadn't touched it. I'd gone straight to bed, hadn't been near the camera. Could the mount be loose? I checked when I got home. It was tight, secure, not loose at all. Over the next week, it kept happening. Every day, sometimes multiple times a day, the camera would shift. Small adjustments, subtle changes in angle, always when I wasn't home or when I was asleep. Never while I was actually watching the feed. I checked the motion detection recordings. Nothing. No footage of anyone entering my apartment. No evidence of the camera being touched. It just moved. Between one frame and the next, the angle would be different. I called the company's customer support, explained the situation. The guy on the phone sounded skeptical. "Our cameras don't move on their own, ma'am. They don't have motorized mounts or remote control features. Someone would have to physically touch it." Well, someone is. Or something is. Because it's definitely moving. Have you checked for drafts? Sometimes airflow can cause slight movements if the mount isn't completely secure. The mount is secure, and drafts don't explain why it's pointing in completely different directions. He had no answer for that. Offered to send a replacement camera. I accepted, figuring maybe it was defective somehow. The new camera arrived 3 days later. I set it up in the exact same spot, same mount, same angle, made sure everything was tight and secure, checked the feed multiple times that evening. Perfect, centered, aimed at the door. Woke up the next morning, checked my phone. The camera had moved, pointed toward my bed now, directly at where I'd been sleeping. My stomach dropped. This was different. This felt intentional, invasive. I stayed home from work that day, set up my laptop with the camera feed on screen and watched it continuously. Hours passed. The camera didn't move. My cat wandered around, knocked over a cup, licked herself. Normal apartment stuff. Around 3 p.m., I went to the bathroom. Was gone maybe 3 minutes. When I came back, the camera angle had changed. Still pointing vaguely toward my bed area, but shifted left, toward the window. I'd been watching it for hours, and the second I looked away, it moved. "Okay," I said aloud, to my empty apartment. "What the hell is going on?" The camera didn't answer, obviously. I started documenting everything, screenshot every camera position, time-stamped, saved in a folder on my computer. Over the next week, a pattern emerged. The camera was scanning my apartment, methodically. It would point at the door for a day, then shift to the kitchen, then the window, then my bed, then the bathroom door. Like something was studying my space, learning the layout, watching my routines. And it always moved when I wasn't looking, when I was at work, when I was asleep, when I was in the bathroom, or looking at my phone. Never while I was actively watching the feed. My friend Jasmine came over one evening. I showed her the documentation, the pattern of movements, the timestamps. "That's creepy as hell," she said. "Have you checked if someone hacked it? These smart cameras, they're not always secure." "How would I check that?" "Change your Wi-Fi password. If someone's remotely accessing it, that might cut them off." I changed my password immediately. Strong, random, nothing anyone could guess. For 2 days, the camera stayed still. I thought maybe that was it. Problem solved. Someone had hacked in, now they couldn't. Then on the 3rd day, it moved again. This time pointing at my front door, but from a lower angle, like it had been pushed down. "That doesn't make sense," Jasmine said when I called her. "If it's not hacked and no one's physically touching it, what's left?" "I don't know. Maybe the apartment is haunted?" I said it as a joke. She didn't laugh. "You know what? That building is old. Have you looked into its history?" I hadn't. But that night, I did some research. Found old news articles, property records, tenant complaints filed with the city. And I found something. 4 years ago, before I'd moved in, a woman named Patricia Neves had lived in my apartment. She'd been murdered there, stabbed to death by an ex-boyfriend who'd broken in while she was sleeping. He was caught, convicted, serving life. But Patricia had died in my apartment, in the bedroom area, according to the police report. Right about where my bed was now. My skin went cold reading it. I'd been sleeping in the spot where someone was murdered. The articles mentioned that Patricia had been trying to get security measures for the building, had filed complaints about the locks being inadequate, about feeling unsafe, about her ex showing up and the landlord doing nothing. She'd even bought a security camera, installed it in her apartment, the same apartment I now lived in. I looked at my camera, sitting there on its mount, lens dark and unblinking. Had Patricia bought the same kind of camera? Was this somehow the same one? No, that didn't make sense. The police would have taken it as evidence, and I'd bought mine new, sealed in a box. But the thought wouldn't leave me. What if something of Patricia remained? What if she was still here, still trying to protect herself, still watching for danger? I felt ridiculous even thinking it. Ghosts weren't real. Cameras didn't move because of supernatural forces. There had to be a rational explanation, but the camera kept moving. And now I noticed something else. The angles it chose weren't random. They were strategic. The door, the window, the other entry points. Places where someone could break in. Patricia had wanted security, had tried to protect herself and failed. Was she still trying? That night, I spoke to the camera. "Patricia, if you're here, if you're doing this, I'm not in danger. You don't need to protect me. You can rest." The camera didn't move. For a moment, I felt stupid, talking to an inanimate object in my empty apartment. Then my phone buzzed, motion alert. I looked at the feed. The camera had tilted down, pointing at the floor now, at nothing important, like it was giving up, standing down. "Thank you," I whispered. The camera stayed in that position for 3 days, didn't move at all. I started to think maybe I'd imagined the whole thing, or that the problem had resolved itself somehow. Then I came home from work on a Thursday evening, and the camera was pointed at my door. Not centered like I'd set it originally, but at a sharp angle, focused on the lock, on the doorknob, at maximum zoom, like it was trying to see something specific. My hands shook as I approached my door. Something felt wrong. The camera was trying to show me something, warn me about something. I examined the lock carefully. At first glance, everything looked normal, but when I looked closer, I saw scratches around the keyhole, fresh ones, metal shavings on the floor. Someone had tried to pick my lock, recently, maybe even while I was at work today. My heart hammered. I called the police, filed a report. They said they'd increase patrols in the area, but couldn't do much without catching someone in the act. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept checking the camera feed on my phone, watching my door, waiting for someone to try again. Around 2 a.m., I got a motion alert, grabbed my phone with shaking hands. The camera feed showed my door, and a shadow in the hallway outside. Someone was out there. I could see their feet under the door, could see the doorknob starting to turn slowly. I called 911, whispering my address, saying someone was trying to break in. Grabbed the kitchen knife, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. The doorknob stopped turning. The shadow moved away. Footsteps receding down the hall. Police arrived 10 minutes later. Found no one. Checked the security footage from the building's hallway camera. It had been disabled. Someone had spray painted over the lens earlier that evening. But my camera had caught it, had seen them, had alerted me in time. The police took my footage, said they'd investigate, recommended I stay somewhere else for a few nights. I went to Jasmine's place, brought my cat, tried to calm down. "Your camera saved you," Jasmine said. "If you hadn't been watching, if you hadn't gotten that alert..." I wasn't watching. I was asleep. The camera sent the alert on its own. That's what motion detection does. "Jasmine, the person in the hall was barely moving. They were being careful, quiet. The camera shouldn't have triggered, but it did, right when I needed it to." She didn't have an answer for that. I went back to my apartment 2 days later with a police escort. They'd identified the would-be intruder from DNA on the doorknob. A man with a history of breaking into single women's apartments. Serial predator. They'd been looking for him for months. He's in jail now. Pre-trial detention, facing multiple charges across several cases. I should have felt safe. The threat was gone. But I couldn't stay in that apartment anymore. Couldn't sleep there. Couldn't feel comfortable. Too much had happened. Patricia's murder, the break-in attempt, the weird camera movements. I broke my lease, moved to a different building, better security, different neighborhood. Took the camera with me, installed it in the new place. It hasn't moved since. Points straight at the door, just like I said it. Normal motion alerts, normal operation. Whatever was making it move before, whether it was Patricia's ghost, some glitch, or something else I couldn't explain, it stayed behind. But sometimes, late at night, I look at the camera and wonder if Patricia is still in that apartment, still trying to protect whoever lives there next, still watching for danger with whatever means available to her. The police told me something when they arrested the guy. He'd been watching my building for weeks, learning routines, figuring out which apartments were vulnerable. He'd known about the hallway camera, had planned to disable it, but he hadn't known about my personal security camera. The camera that kept moving, that kept positioning itself at different angles, that had caught the scratches on my door I might not have noticed, that had sent me an alert at exactly the right moment. "You got lucky," the detective said. "If you hadn't had that camera, hadn't been monitoring your apartment." But it wasn't luck. I know that now. Patricia Neves died in that apartment because she couldn't protect herself, because the security measures she begged for never came, because no one took her fear seriously until it was too late. Maybe she was still there, still trying to do what she couldn't do for herself, protecting the next woman who lived in her space, using the only tool available, a security camera connected to WIFI. I looked up her obituary after I moved, found a photo. She was young, maybe 30, with dark hair and a bright smile. The obituary mentioned she'd worked in tech, had been good with computers, smart, capable, full of potential. And she'd died afraid in her own home because someone broke in. That was 6 months ago. I'm settled in my new place now, feel safer here. Different building, different energy. The camera works exactly as it should. No mysterious movements, no unexplained alerts, just normal security monitoring. But I think about Patricia sometimes, about whether she's still in that old apartment, still watching the door, still protecting whoever lives there now. I hope whoever moved in next appreciates it. I hope they're safe. I tried to find her family, wanted to tell them what happened, wanted them to know she might still be there somehow, still trying to help. But I couldn't find anyone. No social media, no contact information. Patricia Neves had been alone when she died, and apparently stayed alone after. Except she wasn't completely alone. Someone else was living in her space, and she protected them. She protected me. To this day, I can't rationally explain what happened with that camera. Maybe it was hacked despite changing passwords. Maybe the mount was faulty and movements were just coincidence. Maybe I was seeing patterns where none existed, and the motion alert that saved me was pure luck. But I don't think so. I think Patricia was there, using whatever means she could to do what she'd wanted to do when she was alive, keep herself and others safe. The building owner eventually disclosed Patricia's murder to new tenants after a tenant rights group forced the issue. Turnover in that unit is high now. Most people don't want to live where someone was killed. The rent is cheap, but no one stays long. I wonder if they all experience strange things, if their cameras move, if doors lock when they shouldn't, if they feel watched in a protective rather than threatening way. I hope so. I hope Patricia is still there, still vigilant, still protecting, because she deserved that chance in life. The least the universe can do is give it to her in death. Last week, I drove past my old building, couldn't help myself. Parked across the street and looked up at what used to be my window. The lights were on. Someone new living there now. And I swear, just for a second, I saw a flicker of red light in the window, like a recording indicator, like a camera, watching, protecting. If you ever install a security camera and it starts moving on its own, acting strange, doing things it shouldn't, don't immediately assume something's wrong. Maybe, just maybe, someone's looking out for you. Someone who knows what it's like to be unsafe in your own home. Someone who's trying to make sure you don't end up like they did. I still have that camera from my old apartment, packed away in a box in my closet. I can't bring myself to throw it away or sell it. Doesn't feel right. Sometimes I take it out, look at it, remember those strange weeks when it moved and shifted and watched over me. Remember the night it saved my life. Thank you, Patricia, I say to it. Thank you for protecting me. The camera doesn't move, doesn't respond, just sits there, lens dark and quiet. But I think she knows. I think somewhere, somehow, she knows I'm grateful, and I hope she's found peace. But if she hasn't, if she's still in that apartment, still moving cameras, still watching doors, still keeping the next scared woman safe, then I'm grateful for that too. Because maybe the best way to honor someone's death is to let them finish what they started. Patricia Neves wanted safety and security and protection. She's still getting it. For others, if not for herself. And that's not a haunting. That's justice. That's love. That's a camera that moves on its own because someone cares enough to make it.